Well, the first thing, of course, that comes to mind is home for me. It's always been, and I believe it always will be. I don't see any reason to go anyplace else, which is kind of why I haven't.
Woodside, Sunnyside is. It's like I've lived here since I was born, and I'm 60.
I was actually born here, so I've been here since 1963.
I'm a resident of Woodside.
Okay.
I'm a Woodside resident, and I'm born and raised living in the same building I grew up in Woodside. So that's 50 years.
What kind of changes have you seen in the neighborhood over the past 60 years?
I've seen a lot of changes. I've seen from what used to be a very Italian and Irish, specifically Woodside / Sunnyside, Irish Italian culture. It's almost like they skip. If you're on the train, other cultures would skip over Sunnyside and Woodside and go to Jackson Heights. Now today, things have changed. There's more. I see all kind of cultures in my neighborhood: Chinese, Korean, Spanish, Black, which it was unheard of, particularly Sunnyside and Woodside, which is a good thing.
You can see your face.
It was less strained. Now it's less strained. People feel a little bit more at ease.
It's certainly it's been a melting pot, and even more so, a lot more of an Asian influence. I believe there's all from every country you can imagine is represented, and I see that it was more when I was growing up. It was more Jackson Heights. Where it started in terms of that kind of eclectic mix, and it seems to be moving further west.
I remember if I had a black friend or a Puerto Rican friend, and I'd have to worry. I'd have to watch my back for them. They weren't watching them. I had to watch my back for them because I didn't know if my friend would be talked about, pointed to. I mean, I've seen it. I could go on. A friend of mine, she was a black woman, walked into the store in Woodside. She went to go. I work in the post office, so did she. She went in to buy clothes, whatever. He had plenty of money on us. I stayed out and had a cigarette. I came in after her. They didn't know I was with her. I walked in behind her, and I noticed that people were following her. The people that worked in the store. I felt uncomfortable. I was like, what the hell? I also seen the difference in the mom and pop stores are closing.
I've seen a lot of change. A lot of the, of course, the stores that I knew growing up are no longer there. There were a lot more mom and pop type of shops, and now there seems to be an influx of supermarkets, at least closer to 61st Street and further east from there.
So I lived in Sunnyside ever since I was born. I was born on 45th Street, so it's somewhere along the middle of Sunnyside. And when I became 16 or 17, I moved to a different part of Sunnyside, more towards the edge, but still within Sunnyside. I'm 23.
Okay, so what's changed in like 20 years?
I see the type of stores that we've had. We've had a lot more local stores. Now that we have a lot of more chains coming, so I'm pretty sure the supermarket, other people have seen a Key Express. A lot of local stores include the theater.
You live in Woodside. Were you affected when the movie theater here closed? Did you go there a lot?
Oh yeah, well the Sunnyside, the Center Theater was a favorite. I mean, I go back as far as there was a Deluxe Theater in Woodside that was on Roosevelt Avenue. Many years ago that closed, that I went to as a boy, that I saw double features to. So the center was kind of one of the holdouts to be able to go and see a movie and enjoy, even though your feet stuck to the floor, and the popcorn and the greasy popcorn, everything else was great. It was the whole experience, and you got to enjoy a film a current rate film for a very reasonable price. So that it was sorely missed. I don't know what they're going to be doing with that facility in that space.
We've lost a lot of our common core businesses in the neighborhood. Just within the past, say, 6 years, we've lost a local movie theater. We've lost a very big neighborhood bank that was here. Little things like that. If you go back further than that, this neighborhood had at one point at least 2 or 3 bowling alleys, 3 movie theaters, And so what we're losing is not necessarily what we're gaining at that point. It's a great place to raise a family. It's a great place to have your children. Our parks are beautiful here and stuff. But where are you going to take them outside of that? You have to leave the neighborhood to do something with them now.
But at the same time, we really keep a lot of other local stores, such as the pet shop that we have in some of the food areas.
Could you maybe talk a little bit about what the effect the losing the movie theater had on the neighborhood to you?
To me, it was something that I grew up in. On a rainy day or any day, the fact that you could just walk out of your house and be at the movie theater in a matter of minutes. And it wasn't the grand theater that originally was built, but it was what it was toward its end. And any day that you can go there and bring your kids there and get popcorn in the movie and take your kids there for two people to spend under $15, it was priced right for the community, that you didn't have to leave the area. Like I just said, it wasn't the grand single theater that it started when it was built in the 1940s, but it was still here and it was still home to everybody that's here. It's a tough thing to lose and stuff. There was also a local business that was attached to it that went there. There was a well-known Irish pub and restaurant that was there for at least 30 years that we had lost, that just recently reopened in another part of the neighborhood. That was, a hardship to people because they were used to going to dinner and a movie, things like that.
The name of my company is the Double Eagle Process. It's a consulting company that I coach and help entrepreneurs and individuals essentially go through transition. I take over companies that are failing or that want to achieve some sort of positive change or goal that they haven't been able to before, need an objective viewpoint, and I will come in and do that. From a business owner standpoint, in this neighborhood, in talking to some of the business owners in the area, they've said that also real estate prices have gone up. It's made it very difficult for tenants to maintain some of the to be able to get a retail space. I think is becoming more competitive, and that with the gentrification and more population is driving up that, and also the costs, the real estate costs that landlords have to make up for renting, and not to mention the insurance. That's another aspect. So it's to be able to start and run a small business successfully is becoming more challenging in this community. Vacancies are being swept up by some of the development and changing over to residential, so you have less and less. I hope that it doesn't become more of a big store or a chain store type of a thing, that it still becomes the opportunity, that this is a place that you can start a business in.
Secondly, I see when they open up the hotels on Queens Boulevard, there's a Pan Am, there was the Mets Hotel, there was a Woodside Hotel, and we're talking blocks from each other. And they all closed down, and all of them are homeless shelters now. All of them. Right now, there's another one that just came up pretty close to the Pan Am Hotel. That's almost in Jackson Heights on Queens Boulevard. It's almost like it's a joke. They build them up. They keep them up there for a year. They must have some kind of code for New York State. They keep them up for a year, and then automatically it goes right into a homeless shelter. Which means they're cracking people's cars for a pack of cigarettes, not even because the homeless smoke, because they sell them. They sell them on the corner.
There's a lot of parts of Manhattan that have become very gentrified. There's a younger community. I think there's a value of having a younger community. A lot of college-age students, they love having a lot of bars around and a very fun party area such as Williamsburg.
There's a bar in every corner, which is good and not good. Because they don't have any activities as far as the negative things. There's no activities, it's just bars everywhere. So everybody wants to go to have a drink, to have dinner. It's always a drink, and they want to go to the bar. But some of them have come down and they built new ones and they have cafes outside. That's nice.
But if you really want to raise a family, I think that having a nice neighborhood like Sunnyside, where you don't have as much bars or as much party life, you're able to raise your family and have a good few parks. It's a very safe neighborhood.
And also, I also feel that it's still a safe community. I think, at least I can speak for myself. I look out for my neighbors, and I look out for the people as I walk around. I look around, and if I see something, I say something. And I think other people in the neighborhood to do the same.
You got to watch yourself when you're walking out at night now. You just do. You just never know. I heard there's people walking past you, scoping your pockets. There's this new app where they can get, which it's been done to me. Will they have your credit card number? I have my credit card on me. I had the bank call me twice already in about 6 months' time. Twice. I had my debit card taken, and it's been on me and been used. I asked, how's that done? They said, people walk past you, and they scan your pockets. And so I guess that's everywhere. You get that everywhere. But I never seen so much of that in Woodside/Sunnyside.
And what are your thoughts on the neighborhood in general? You said you grew up here.
So I grew up here. I don't live in Sunnyside anymore. I live in Woodside because we were just talking about how the rents skyrocketed. And so what happened was when I decided to move back to Sunnyside, I could no longer afford to live in Sunnyside. So I actually had to move to Woodside because the rent there was a lot more.
Why do you think the rent's gone up so much?
Convenience. I think the 7 that's up here, it's very convenient. You'll be in the city in 15 minutes.
Convenience to the city from where Sunnyside is to the city. In the old times, if you don't have delays on the 7 train, you could make it from, I'm going to say, the Lowry Street station into Times Square in under 15 minutes time on a good day, you know, and if not better on a really quiet day.
The rents here, crazy. I can't believe the rents they want. Years ago, and I still live in the same building. If you have a 1-bedroom, there's no way in hell that you would get away with living with more than 2 people. No way. Today, I got people across the hallway from me. They have a 1-bedroom and they get away with 5 people. 5 people. Where they put them, I really don't know. And the landlord doesn't care. Why? Because he's getting an extraordinary amount of rent. And I'm talking about a 4th-floor walk-up. No laundry facility, no driveway. I mean, it's stairs. He's getting the money. He's still getting the money. And he don't care if you got 5, 7 people. He basically told me that, as long as he's getting the rent. That never happened years ago. That would never happen. It happens today.
I think it's a couple of things. Sunnyside's in a great location. You had a lot of sort of this push that it was gonna be the next up and coming neighborhood, and sometimes when that happens, they sort of inflate the prices of things, and they're like, oh yeah, it's going to be the next big thing, and therefore all the landlords and real estate agents are like, well, then let's just pump up the rent prices, you know? And it's sort of this false sense that's put out there until you know, you do start getting these younger people who make like 6 figures who actually can afford, and then, you know, the people who can't start getting pushed out further and further and further. But I think it's a lot of things. It's you know, the cost of New York City in general is just skyrocketed, and it's not just one factor. It's really like many factors.
So the reason that living here is a really good value is, number one, location. We're very close to Manhattan. If we want to go inside Brooklyn, we are better than coming from a deeper part of Queens. We're somewhere along the edge of Brooklyn. Going to the Bronx isn't necessarily the easiest thing, but I think out of any part of Queens, I think we have the best location to go inside the Bronx. I'd say that because we're right in the middle of New York City, being able to mobilize is very good.
At the same time, we have pressures, it seems, from Manhattan moving east in terms of building, and lots of building, real estate prices going up dramatically, rents going up dramatically, all sorts of, and costs as well have also been increasing.
I don't know if people actually move from Manhattan here. I'd be surprised if they did that.
As much as things change, some things stay the same. We're going right through a really big growth spurt, if you'd say, right now, with the building of new buildings and the try to reconfigure the streets so it'll work properly for the next generation that's here. The biggest change now is just like the vacancy of a lot of the stores on the boulevard in hopes of going up high.
They're just hoping that the change that is happening continues to be positive for the community, and not one that becomes a developer money grab, and that ends up, destroying a lot of the beautiful things that are here, and making superstructures and overpopulating without the infrastructure, and then just doing things without thinking for the sake of the almighty dollar, which unfortunately that seems to be the case.
My other concern is developers coming in and deciding to take down your 3-story apartment building and put a taller structure up in its place. Where do these people go?
Why do you think all these developers are coming here?
It's the new frontier, It's the new frontier and stuff. Manhattan is boxed out. Long Island City has gotten extremely boxed out now with it's down there, and it's overgrown and overpopulated now. And our structure, our system in the neighborhoods can't handle it at this point. We're bringing more people and more merchants and everything, which is all great, but our transit systems, our bus systems, and even the Long Island Railroad systems can't handle the amount of people that it's trying to commute people back and forth.
First of all, Woodside used to be the most expensive, But I heard just recently, like last week, me and a friend of mine came down here to have lunch or something, and she said, "Ted," she said, "these apartments here, she said, they're crazy. It's 1-bedroom apartments worse than Woodside now." I said, "Are you kidding me?" I said, "Why?" Because it's like a couple of stops closer to Manhattan. She goes, like, possibly.
I'm lucky enough that my family's has been here since 1955, so my rent is a little bit lower than some other people's rents would be. But as I've said to other people, I express concern about with the building growth in the neighborhood, that if something happens and they take away rent stabilization or rent control, where will all these long-term people that have been here for a long time, that have lived through the bad, the good, and the good, the good, the bad, and the good again, in the neighborhood?
It's tough, and the landlords here are just greedy.
I had a friend of mine that was going through a divorce and moved and was staying with me for a little while until he could decide where he wanted to go, and decided to put up roots in Sunnyside, and actually moved into a building down on this street. And within 2 leases, they priced him out of his apartment that he was paying from $1,200, and it was jumping up to $2,100 at the end of his second 2-year lease that he'd gotten from them.
It's not like you get these great apartments. They're old. They need to be updated. The bathrooms need to be updated. There's all these old tubs, and they said an eat-in kitchen. I walked in some of these apartments. They eat-in kitchen. Where do you eat, man? In the sink? It's ridiculous. But it's the convenience. That's what they're getting paid for. My block alone on 60th Street, it's called Millionaire's Row. Why? Because it's the only apartment building in there that I live in, but all the houses are $1 million. Convenience to the city, you got the Q60 on Queens Boulevard, gets you to the city. You got the 32 that runs into Manhattan also, and you got the 7. Now the 7 could go 2 stops to Jackson Heights, where you can get the UDF, or you can go forward and go to Queens Plaza and change, or just keep going to Grand Central. Now it's further. Now it's an extra stop. I forgot what it is. Hunts Point, something. But yeah, the convenience. They're getting for the convenience alone. Certainly ain't for the apartments, I'll tell you that.
Everything seems to be costing more just to have property. I don't know. I really don't know how people are living or being able to buy a place now. If you're going to buy a one-family home for almost $1 million, I mean that carrying cost is pretty huge. On top of it, everything else, and you're not getting any income from that. I don't know how what people are doing to make this type of income. So in terms of what it is that's driving it up, you've got real estate taxes have increased, water costs, water and sewer, gas, all of those things, and in terms of landlords have to manage that cost and their investments as well. So they've got to make their returns.
I live at home with my parents. I think the tough thing about graduating from college and having decided whether or not I want to live by myself is that Sunnyside's a great neighborhood. If I were to move and try to move to a different part of New York City, I think that would be really expensive. I also think that living in a different part of Sunnyside would be very expensive. So having that debate on whether or not it makes sense for me to move, I think it's tough just because Sunnyside had a great location. I have a lot of space at home. The homes here aren't necessarily too small. There's very good safety. So if I were to move, it'd be a much worse location.
I mean, I feel sorry for the people like yourself, college. I don't care what kind of degree you have. When you're coming out of school, you got debt. You have to pay back your school loans. Yeah, I feel sorry for the younger crowd, like people in their 20s. What are they gonna do? How much rent could you pay? You got school loans. You got, you just got cable, electric. If you have car insurance, and Jesus, I said to myself, I'm kind of glad I'm 60 because I don't know what I would do at 20. What are you going to do? You have to have roommates. And then if you have 2 or 3 roommates and one of them pulls out on you and leaves, gets married, you're stuck with a lease saying your name. So then you have to be able to pick up the slack until you get somebody else. It's just a dog-eat-dog world here. But the things I do like is the culture. It's more of a mix now. It's more of a mix of instead of just the Irish and the Italian, you get a mix of different people. We get to know the culture. We get to know the people. We get to know their foods and whatever, And which I think is great.
Other places that I visited around the country, I don't have that kind of, you don't see and meet and become friends with people from the other side of the world that have just come here, for goodness sake, maybe 3 months ago. And it's pretty amazing, their experiences.
And you run the Lost Sunnyside Woodside Facebook group,
Yes.
so can you talk a little bit about that?
That's a page I started about growing up, my love for the neighborhood, and all the things that we once had that we no longer have. And it's growing now, and it's evolving into other things now, where it's actually going to now to the point where it was showing what we used to have to what's coming in the future, good, bad, or indifferent. And trust me, there's a lot of arguments on both sides whether it's going to be. And, that's what it's developing into. But what it started was sort of a co-op of other group members sending their pictures in of their parents. There used to be a town community swimming pool on 50th and Queens Boulevard, or 51st, called Sunnyside Pool, of people sending in pictures of their parents at the pool, or pictures of kids at their Skillman Avenue Park, or like I have pictures of my park school graduation, which was preschool at the time, but they didn't have it in the school, so it was held in the local parks here. And for the local businesses, and even some of the local business owners that no longer have businesses are still tied to the community through that webpage.
In general, do you feel there's a sense of community?
Yes, I do. Yes, I do. I think there's a lot of local people that still hang out in the same coffee shop, and everybody in that particular place knows each other. And then there are some that just new people, they come in and we get to know them too. Yes, there's a sense of community, for sure.
The old time or the long time community is still very tight. Mm-hmm. The newer community that's here, it's sort of oil and vinegar between us now. I only want this type of roadway in, but I don't care if you can't take the trains because they're not accessible for the handicap. It's pretty much to myself type of thing, and that's where I see it's hurting, and that's what's causing the biggest friction in the neighborhood. Everybody should learn to cohese together. To work out the best for everybody, not what necessarily might be the best for you and your friends. Not everybody fits the same category anymore.
Sunnyside CSA, CSA stands for Community Supported Agriculture, and it's basically vegetable and fruit shares that people buy into. It's local organic vegetables, and people buy a share of the local harvest for that season. You pay up front, and then between the months of between the months of June and September, you get your share of the harvest. So the farmer comes and delivers the vegetables every week, and then you come to the community center and pick up your veggies. I feel, for me, it builds community because you meet people. We have events in the neighborhood like potluck and coffee open house, things like that.
I think that we are also able to keep a lot of small businesses. I think that we're able to have a community in Sunnyside, a community strong enough where we enjoy going to local businesses. So I think there's some businesses that are dying, but a lot of them are thriving, being part of a community like this. I think that I think the Sunnyside is special just because we differentiate ourselves very well because of the ability to create a family here. I think that if it's very young to have kids, if you're living in Williamsburg or any other example of upcoming neighborhood, living in Manhattan can be difficult. I think it's very hard to have a community because everyone that is in Manhattan usually isn't from Manhattan. There's too many tourists. There's too many people that work over there that don't live in the city. By raising your family in Sunnyside, you can guarantee safety, you can guarantee nice parks, you can guarantee that the people that work over here are actually from here and care about the neighborhood. So I think that we're very, very different because we're the best place to raise a family.
Oh, there are so many benefits. This is one of the reasons why I've stayed here and lived here my whole life. I only went away just for college for a few years. And the location is ideal. You're so centrally located 20 minutes to Manhattan, half an hour Manhattan. In terms of thoroughfares, you've got Long Island Expressway, the cross sections of the Brooklyn Queens Expressway, Long Island Expressway, all the bridges are all right here. So it's so accessible to many things, and also a major transit hub for the MTA as well. So that makes it very, very attractive. But at the same time, what's nice is that I believe it's still maintained, and it continues to maintain somewhat of a community feel. And I hope that it keeps that way as things hopefully improve. For some reason, this neighborhood is known as being that kind of a neighborhood, even though it's within, quote unquote, the city.
Hi. I just wanted to conclude this piece in some way. Hi, I'm Lorraine. I wanted a conclusion. I wanted to say some things before this was over because I feel I'm obligated to. This was a very personal piece, not only for the people who contributed and shared their thoughts, and I want to thank every one of you very sincerely. You helped me out a lot. This is a school project, so I really appreciate it. But it's also, I'd say it's been a very personal project for myself. I've grown up in Sunnyside, so let me say a couple of things. Number one, I did not really know where I was going when I started this project. My assignment for my final project was to do anything as long as it was about New York. And I had originally wanted to do this project for my midterm, but I didn't know if I would get a lot of people to volunteer. And then for my final project, I didn't know what to do, and I thought, let me do the Sunnyside Project. So I was very shocked, actually, when so many people volunteered right away. So I thought, let me do it, and I knew I was going to ask people, about rent and small businesses, but I didn't really know where I was going. And it took me a while to realize that I didn't know where I was going. Like, I started out, I was like, oh, cool, I'll just ask questions. And then in the middle of it, I thought, where am I going with this? And I had a big crisis. So I didn't know where I was going. And then I realized my purpose here was not to make a sweeping statement. Number one, because I only interviewed 5 people for this, and I don't want to say I'm making a sweeping statement because 5 people isn't the whole neighborhood. And also, I do have conflicting views in here, and I know I have conflicting views in here. I'm very well aware of that. Some people say one thing, some people say the other, and that's just because I tried as much as I could to get a wide range of feelings. I didn't want it summed up in one big statement. I wanted a wide range of views of what's going on, because I don't think you can have one sweeping statement for this. I think you need a wide range of opinions, and I think that adds to it. To sum this up, in my last class for this class I'm making the project for, Storied New York, my professor asked us, how has our view on the city changed since we started taking the class? And I didn't answer, partly because I wanted to put my answer in this video. So my answer to that is, I've lived in the city my whole life. I don't see the city as something romantic, as a lot of people who come here do, because I'm just so used to it. But I think definitely after doing this project, I definitely have a lot more pride in Sunnyside and where I grew up. And, you know, a lot of the readings we did were about Manhattan. And, you know, just what people typically think of when they think of the city. And, you know, it's hustle and it's bustle. But I get on the 7 every day, and I come home to a very quiet place and a very subdued place. And I come home and it's almost like a small town in the middle of the city. And I think I have a greater appreciation for that now. I have a greater appreciation for the quiet. And I think because of doing this project, I have a greater respect and a greater love for home.